Good morning. For years I have tried my damnedest to avoid sleeping on one of those crinkly, thin, uncomfortable, inflatable sleeping mats. I just can't stand them. My back can't deal with it. I'm in my 40s now. I like a good night's sleep. I always adventure with a pillow. And as a result, that need for comfort has taken me hammocking between trees for years and years and years. My hammock is always the first bit of gear in my bag when I head off on an adventure. I have tried all kinds of hammocks made in all different corners of the globe. Recently I was contacted by a company called Haven, who are based in the USA, and they sent me a sample tent. It's behind me. And out of all the different hammocks I've tried, this one has something a little different, which instantly grabbed me. It's super comfortable. It's not shaped like your typical hammock. It's got a really nice rain fly. You can set it up on the ground if you don't have trees or other aerial anchor points. And yeah, it comes with its own bunting as well. So I got in touch with Derek Tillotson, who runs Haven and designed the product, mostly because I was really intrigued about how he'd come up with the idea. Originally, our chat was just going to be on an audio podcast, but for some reason I couldn't get the tech to work. I mean, it's only 2022. So we did a rushed Zoom call. As a result, I got the settings wrong, and you can only see Derek's face, which isn't a bad thing. He's got a very nice face. So without further ado, here's an interview with Derek Tillotson from Haven Tents.
Thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with us today to talk to us about the Haven Safari and maybe the rest of Haven Tents as well. First of all, where are you in the world right now, and what can you see?
Yeah, so I'm in my home in Sandy, Utah. I'm right at the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon. So if any of your listeners have been skiing at Alta or Snowbird, they would drive right by my house. And so we're pretty blessed. I'm 10 minutes from the Snowbird parking lot. And so I went skiing for a couple hours on Wednesday. And yeah, so we're here. The season is coming to an end, but it's a great place to be.
Oh man, there's people listening in already who gently hate you because of the wonderful location you found yourself in. How long has this been home? And I suppose, living in the great outdoors has to reflect on your passion for life and business.
Absolutely. I've always worked and tried to structure my life so it could be a family-centered, life. And that's always been a big priority for us. In fact, we wanted to, one of the goals that I set for myself as we started to have kids was I wanted to, go on a long trip every summer. And our first long trip was actually through the UK. We landed up in Scotland up in the north by Loch Ness, and then drove all the way to London. And we just had an amazing time with our two super young kids. And so when we found ourselves with three kids that were starting to grow up and, wanting to raise them in a place where they could be, have quick, easy access to nature, this is where we settled. My wife and I actually both grew up within 5 minutes from here. So it was where we grew up, and it's where we wanted to do some growing ourselves.
Amazing. That sounds like a home for life right there. We'll obviously talk about the business and Haven itself shortly, but how important is it for you to have roots in one place as you're growing a small business and developing products that you care about?
Yeah, I think that it's important. I mean, especially being able to test the product and make videos of the product right in my backyard. And it looks like I've gone and hiked to some destination. We actually have a creek in our backyard, which comes out of Little Cottonwood Canyon. And so it's pretty nice. And definitely having a commitment to the outdoors. I mean, I'm able to look out my window and see our product all day, right? And if it's snowing, if it's raining, or whatever, I can kind of check in on it and see how it's doing. And yeah, it's definitely been fun, and it's a great place to build a business. Utah in general, lots of entrepreneurial minded people, and great love of the outdoors.
Yeah, for sure. That's got to rub off on you in all the good ways. Derek, for me, for years and years and years, I've I've traveled endless self-propelled non-motorized miles for over a decade all over the planet.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time since I've enjoyed sleeping in a tent on a camping pad. As soon as I heard about the Haven Safari and what you've been up to, I resonated straight away. How long have you been camping, and when did hammock start to take precedent for you?
Yeah. So I definitely grew up in the Scouts. I grew up camping. It was a big part of my, family, and my cousins and I would go out into the mountains here and camp all the time. And as I grew up, I started to become a weight snob, where I started to get things lighter and lighter, counting the ounces. And then I found, Dave, there was a correlation between camping and never having a good night's sleep, right? And it was like the lighter I got, the worse my sleeping experience was while camping. And so my wife and I pick a theme every year, and we made 2018 our year of creativity. And we had just done something pretty crazy. We actually sold our house in Utah, our old house, and we traveled with our 3 kids for a year. We did 54 countries over the course of a year. And it was wild. It was so amazing. And my wife and our kids were 6, 4, and 1 when we started this trip. And so we're coming off of this trip, and we found ourselves at our ranch up in Oregon and up at a family property. And I was laying in a regular hammock and, kind of tuning into this thing. And then I just had this idea that what if my head and feet were lower, and if I didn't have pressure on my sides? That was, I felt like it would be so much more comfortable if I wasn't cocooned and if I wasn't, bowed like a banana. And so that kind of got the wheels turning. And being a little bit of a tinkerer, I started kind of drawing how I would solve the lay flat problem in a hammock. And I was so close to putting it aside, thinking, okay, I have no experience in product design. I have no experience in manufacturing. I don't really know much about hammocks, to tell you the truth. But then I remembered this was my year of creativity. And so I wanted to do something different. And so I said, okay, I'm at least going to take it a prototype. And my first prototype, it was kind of beginner's luck. I did a lot of thinking to get it right. And our first prototype was awesome. And it was so much better than our second, third, and fourth prototypes. It was definitely, we had a big step forward, and then we had some steps back as we tried to figure out exactly what it was that made our Haven tent special. But then as we refined that and continued to develop it, I realized, there might be a story here, because it wasn't only more comfortable than sleeping in a regular hammock or more comfortable than sleeping on a pad on the ground. It was as comfortable as sleeping in your bed at home. And so all of the things that we love about the outdoors, imagine if we could bring our bed along, right? Where it's not a consolation like, now I have to try to sleep. Good thing I'm so tired from riding my bike all day. I'll probably get 3 good hours of uninterrupted sleep. It's like, let's try to sleep in, right? Let's make a sleeping situation where it becomes the highlight of camping, not just this survival thing. Let me just try to, make it through the night. When is the sun coming back up so I can get back on my bike, or I can, get back to my day? And so I believe that the Haven tent, and especially Haven Safari, accomplishes that, making sleep the highlight of camping.
I haven't spent an overnight yet, but I did have a cheeky afternoon nap in mine, having put it up for the first time a couple of days ago, and it's definitely comfortable. I don't think I managed to inflate the pad enough. I was in a gentle hurry before my afternoon nap, so there's no excuse at all. But I'm really looking forward to spending some more nights in the Haven. I get the feeling that you're not only passionate about this, but you have to talk about it all the time. And when you're right in the middle of, kind of looking after your baby, if you like, it's sometimes hard to kind of think about the different angles, different storylines. And for me, what's fascinating about this is not only the fact that you managed to slot in your year of creativity and travel just before the pandemic. Nice work.
Yeah, we're well done, right?
But also, how do you go about taking this idea and turning it into, a product that can ship globally? Had you ever created a product before?
No. So I had been in marketing and sales. That's my background. Okay. And to tell you the truth, I had done it for so long, and I had kind of figured out the formula that I was, kind of missing that creativity element. In fact, you were actually trying not to be creative because you want it to be, duplicatable and kind of simple. And so it first started out as like a creative exercise of, let's see if I can make something. And then when that thing turned out to actually solve a problem, or, kind of scratch an itch that was there for me and what I thought might be there for so many other people, I started to see, wow, there might be a business tied into this. And then it just became a year and a half of learning, and so much time and energy invested. Not that much money, to tell you the truth, as far as businesses go, right? I didn't have to buy any equipment or anything like that, but a lot of time and energy, and just, like moments of growth where I was sitting on an airplane and I was kind of talking about my invention with somebody. And in the meantime, I've been building it all in Adobe Photoshop, just because it was the only way I knew how to make like a scale. Okay, I need to, how long is this measurement going to be? And if I were to do it, I could actually go and I could, measure all of the lines in Adobe Photoshop, and it could be to scale. So I was building these giant Adobe Photoshop sheets, and I'm sitting on the airplane next to somebody, kind of telling him my process. And he goes, "Have you heard of SketchUp?" Like, no, I haven't heard of SketchUp before. It's like, yeah, it's a 3D rendering. It's a 3D modeling software. You should look at it. And it was like lipo, And so there were all of these revelatory moments along the way where me, as being starting out as total novice, total like noob in the product creation space, and then just like getting pushed in the right direction with these little bits of inspiration, until eventually I launched on Kickstarter. And Kickstarter is the biggest, I guess, like jump off the cliff and learn to fly, because you take orders from people. You make a video, you show them a prototype, and all of a sudden all these people are like jazzed about this thing, and now you got to go out there and make it. And so we started production in the fall of 2019 and ended in February of 2020. So that was right as the pandemic was happening. And of course, our first batch of rainflies, it was my design error. They would leak. And in one particular spot, they would leak. And it wasn't like a major deal, but now we got all these leaking rainflies, and people were super understanding and super cool. And we sent out like an announcement that we'll be sending everybody a new rainfly once we can make it. But now it's the pandemic and the world is shut down. It's all sorts of craziness. And, so it was so much fun, but so difficult. And I'm so much, if I were to do it over again, it would be easy. Like, it would be so much easier having the skills that I've now developed. I'm not sure what the question was, but hopefully I touched on it there.
I love this, having an idea, but then running with it and turning into reality. That's the source of life, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you said you didn't have to spend much money to get this thing going. How do you go about kind of designing your first in-person off computer? Do you get a bed sheet and some scissors and a sewing kit, or what happened?
Yeah, so we just came back from our year of travel, right? Where we had literally just come back, and we didn't have a house yet. And so we ended up living at my mom's house for a few months while we were doing it. And so I was so embarrassed by this like little idea that I had, because I really didn't think it would amount to much. So at midnight, I would like creep downstairs into this big open room, and I would lay, it wasn't a sheet, it was a tarp that I got from Home Depot, which is like a, home goods store here in the US. And I laid out this tarp and I'm cutting it to like become a template. I built the first models on paper, just with a pencil. Then I tried to figure out in Photoshop to get all the measurements right. And eventually I started building them with paper, because as my design started to arc and it started to have the spreader bars, it became more and more complicated. It wasn't just like a gathered end simple hammock. There were all of these different seams and different cuts. And so, yeah, the first versions were made, first templates were made anyway by cutting a tarp. And then I gave the tarp to my wife's cousin who makes baby blankets for Etsy. Like, this was the only person I knew who could sew. And so I gave it to her to whip up the first prototype. And I don't even think she used my tarp templates, because I think they were so off that she ended up just making her own, because she actually knew a thing or two about fabric. But that first prototype was good enough that it let us see the lights, and it let us actually start filing our patent based off of that first prototype, and then some of the elements from that.
Awesome. Love it, love it, love it. For people who are listening or viewing, they may have seen a photo, they may not have. Rather than describe the philosophy of the Haven tent, can you describe what it looks like? Put a picture in the listener's mind's eye.
Great. So it's a hammock, right? It goes between two anchor points. But when you have a hammock in your eye, you're thinking of this like, banana thing that kind of arches downwards. The Haven tent actually arches upward. And that's kind of crazy to think about, but we are the first hammock built around an air mattress. So we actually use an air mattress in our hammock to create some of the width and kind of a sleeping platform. So when you're looking at the Haven tent, it's basically, it's a hammock because it's between two anchor points, but other than that, it's completely different. The sleeping platform actually arches upwards. And then you have these support arcs that come down on either side. It actually looks more like the Golden Gate Bridge than it does a traditional hammock, if you think of it that way, because you have like the road base that is bowing upwards, and then you have these support arcs that are coming down along the sides. And you're basically laying on where the road is of a suspension bridge. And that's more of what our hammock is like. It's very hard to describe, because when you say hammock, people have one thing in mind, and they're not thinking of what the Haven tent is, because we do things differently. And that's what our patent is around, are these little differences that we do to create a flat, open sleeping platform.
Yeah. Hey, look, it's really hard to describe something which it's not super simple, but it's a beautiful looking structure. I've got to say, I've been a hammock evangelist for years and years and years. As I've already mentioned, I hate sleeping on sleeping mats, and we're even designing a hammock village in our little campsite here in Lincolnshire in the UK. Wow. And as soon as I put it up for the first time, the Haven Safari, I put it up in our barn because it was raining outside. And I hate kind of getting brand new products dirty and soaking. Yeah, so I put it up in the barn. I just thought, my wife came in and I said, I could see 10 or 20 of these, scattered throughout the woods. They're awesome. The great thing about this is, though, Derek, not only is it designed around what I think is the best looking and most comfortable sleeping mat that I've ever seen. So hats off to that. It's beautifully soft. Is it a suede cover? Is that right?
Yeah, it's a vegan suede. So it's not an animal suede, but it's a vegan suede cover.
That's an absolute win. The obvious benefits then, if people don't have two anchor points, is you can set up the Haven on the ground, right? Right. So it started out as a hammock, right? This was where the idea came from. What if I could lay flat in a hammock and then not have pressure on my sides? And so we started kind of designing it around that. And obviously our first application was to be for backpacking. How light can we make this thing? And when we launched our first Kickstarter, it was basically around the Haven standard version, which I designed for somebody who is my size. I am 6 feet tall and about 160 pounds, which I'm sorry, I don't know with stones or meters very well, but I'm
I'm like sort of tall and pretty lean, right? And so that's what I built this first product around. Now, the only negative feedback that we received, really the consistent negative feedback was that it was too narrow for some bigger people. And so after we launched the regular Haven tent, we came out with Haven XL. And that recently has been our best selling product. People, even though I recommend if people are smaller, my size or smaller, they should go with the standard, because it's going to, the air mattress works with their shoulder width, with their body frame, to help keep the space open. And if you get somebody who is, smaller and you put them in the XL, the air mattress will tend to fold more than it would for a bigger person, because the bigger person, their body is actually occupying the entire mattress. And so it's helping keep the space open a little bit better. And so we had these two versions that were, made out of lightweight materials and more designed for backpacking or for people that were going to, pack it. And then last spring, I was paddleboarding in Hawaii. And as I was going along the coast, you're kind of looking into people's yards along the coast. And every single one of these yards had a hammock. And they were all the same mesh style, like iconic, good for Instagram, but not necessarily good for, like, you would never sleep in one of these things because they're tippy. There's that mesh that digs into your back. And at the end of the day, you're being folded like a banana, right? And so I kind of looked at those hammocks and said, okay, what if I could make that hammock comfortable? We have a patent on comfortable hammocks, right? Like, this is our space. What if we could make that comfortable that the person just puts in their backyard and forgets about, and it's there whenever they want it? What if we could make that as comfortable as possible? And so that's what Haven Safari is. The version that you have is not one that you would strap on your back and take into the woods. And so I basically said, okay, if weight isn't an issue, and if I just turned up all of the comfort dials, how can I make the mattress as comfortable as possible? Well, let's coat it in suede, so it's quiet and it's soft. And what can we do to keep it a dark space? Well, let's make it out of a 300D polyester canvas, so it's super thick, right? Which makes it really durable and makes it so that the light doesn't come in when you're napping with the rainfly. And let's just make it as posh, as they would say as posh as possible. And that's what we've done. It is like it's, and to even emphasize this more, we made a welcome mat and a bunting banner to kind of make it like, all right, let's just celebrate camping with you guys. And we were able to do that using some scrap material that we had from production. So we didn't actually use up any more material either.
I love the bunting and the matte touch. And
yeah, you like the bunting banner?
I think it's genius. It's just that little extra. Let's just turn this. It's not just something I'm going to sling between two trees for one night. I'm just going to make this a temporary home.
Yeah, exactly.
It's cool. It's a little festival in a bag. Absolutely brilliant touch. And yeah, magic that it's made from scrap material too. Derek, I mean, we're probably less than 4 years since you had this first light bulb idea, and now I'm guessing that life on the whole is kind of dominated by all of this. What does your wife and your kids think?
Well, they absolutely love it. I've always worked from home, and luckily I'm able to do a lot of this from home. We are currently selling product in the US. We are just opening a distribution center in Canada. We have a distribution center in the EU. We don't have one in the UK yet. And since you guys Brexited, it's made our lives a little bit more complicated. And obviously it's made your life a little bit more complicated just with getting products from the UK. I'm not going to go into politics of it, or getting products from the EU. So we're trying to kind of figure out a solution there. We have a distributor in Norway. We have a distributor in Japan as well. And so this really has taken on some legs, and it's become my full-time thing. And it's so funny because when I tell people what I do, it's when people ask, well, I own an outdoor company. Like, oh, really? That's like automatic, at least in Utah, that's like ultimate cool factor. Like, it is the coolest job. And my kids, they used to, anyway, dad is in sales or whatever, and now I'm an inventor for the kids, which is like even cooler. And so it has been a bit of an adoption, but I have to say that I love it, because I used to plan adventures just because I wanted to have adventures, but now I can tell the wife that now this is a business trip. I really need to go and do this. And so my cousins and I have taken Haven week-long horse packing ride through Yellowstone. We did the Wind Rivers last summer. I went in Iceland. We went camping, and ski camping. I've been doing that for the past couple of years now. And so I keep making all of these excuses to create content. I call them content trips. And, I kind of have a bit of a green light now for these adventures, because, you have to support the business.
That's amazing. I can't imagine how often your wife's eyes roll when you're like,
yeah, exactly. Oh, no, I can't. It's really important that I go and, go and do this thing.
Absolutely brilliant. Hey, I'll obviously link people into your website and some excellent YouTube videos as well. But you've got a Kickstarter number 2 on the way as we speak right now in the second week of April 2022. Tell us more about the Kickstarter, what people can get, and when it ends as well.
Yeah, so this is our second Kickstarter. We launched the first Haven tent through Kickstarter, and it was all about getting money. Hey, let's get some money so that we can make these things. With the craziness of the 2020s, right? I didn't want to be put in a situation where I collected orders and then tried to make a product. So and now we have a bit of capital. So I was able to start production long before the Kickstarter. So we actually finished our first round of production in January. And so the tents we actually just received the safari pads at our warehouse in the US yesterday. And so we have all of the products, but we're launching Haven Safari on Kickstarter. And it's less of a traditional Kickstart, help us build this, more of a pre-order process. But we're doing it to, we are leveraging the Kickstarter platform just to get more brand visibility and to introduce more people to a comfortable night outdoors. And so, yes, we have 20 days left in our campaign. We've raised $300,000 so far as part of the campaign. And yeah, so the UK is an option. People can pre-order from the UK. It will ship from the EU, or it'll ship from the US. So there will be duties to pay upon entry. But yeah, it's been great. And I've had so many great conversations, and people kind of learning about us. And if the heavy version isn't for them, then they're circling back and they're buying some of our backpacking tents too. So it's been a great visibility tool for us, and it's been a fun way to get out there and celebrate the launch of a new product.
Derek, I wish you the best of luck with Kickstarter Part 2 and obviously the next 100 iterations of the Haven as well. I really look forward to spending my first of what will definitely be many nights in the Haven, and also introducing it to all of our guests as well. I think we've got some pretty cool places, pods and converted buses where people can sleep here at the Big Sky Hideaway. But I dare say the Haven's going to be quite a popular option if we decide to loan it out. Although I might just be using it myself. We'll see.
Well, I need to get you one of the lightweight backpacking versions so that you can take it on your adventures.
Hey, I'm definitely not going to argue with that.
Okay, awesome.
Absolutely. And hey, if anyone else out there, especially UK-based folks, are looking for a new distribution business to set up, then
exactly right.
We need an English distributor for Haven, right? Hey, Derek, thanks so much for giving me some of your time this Friday. I'll be an evangelist for Haven Safari at the very least for the near future. I'm really looking forward to hearing how you do, and I'm loving the passion. And keep on taking those business trips.
Yeah, right. I got to take one to the UK. I got to see this park that you guys have built. It sounds
Hey,
amazing.
you're always welcome, and you don't even need to sleep in a tent.
I went to HangCon, which is like the largest gathering of hammock campers in the US. It was in Florida. HangCon, I didn't know anything about it. And honestly, I went there and my plan was just to sleep in the tent. And that's what I did. It was so great. But we spent 3 days just talking to like the most passionate hammock people, and they all loved the Haven tent. It was so cool. So yeah, everywhere I go, I don't mind sleeping in the tent.
I mean, hold on. This sounds amazing. It's called HamCon. How many people are in hammocks?
HangCon. So they basically just take over a big campground in Florida. And it's not like a convention where you're in a convention center and everybody just kind of walks around the booths. Basically, everybody's just camping. And there is a section for vendors, and it's free. You buy raffle tickets to win free gear. And so me and all of the other vendors put a bunch of gear up for raffle, and they end up paying for the food and for the event as part of the raffle. And so it's basically just this, if you're in Florida, it's the same weekend every year in January in Florida. And it was so fun. So
incredible. I know where I'm going to be next January.
Yeah, I love it. David, so great meeting you. Thank you for the time, and thank you for giving us a voice here on the platform that you've built. So it's an honor.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. My pleasure. Hey, have an amazing weekend, and no doubt we'll speak soon. Cheers, Derek.
Beautiful. Cheers. Thanks.